Cassie Kennedy, and this is my audience. Okay, and my professional communication speech will be on the concept of listening in counseling and mental health therapy. So growing up, I was always told I was the therapist friend. People would constantly come to me with their problems and just talk, and they would say, "Oh, Cassie, you'd be a really good therapist," and that kind of pushed me to go into this field. But I was always confused when they would say that because all I would do was just simply listen to them. So a counselor is someone that needs to have good listening skills because they need to make people feel validated. And in this case, I did make people feel validated. So having proper listening skills is important in communication. It deepens the relationship, it builds trust, and by going through the stages of listening, knocking down listening barriers, and using appropriate listening styles, one can have all the good qualities of a good listener and eventually a good counselor. So as an aspiring mental health counselor, it's important for me to learn these good listening skills and learn the best approach to make patients feel validated and unignored. So the first thing I'm going to go over is the stages of listening, and you might be asking which are most important in counseling. So each stage is important. There's a need for balance with all of them as a role of a listener. So the first two are receiving and understanding. These are just basic listening skills. They don't require much effort. DeVito and interpersonal messages describe these as receiving signals and understanding emotions and thoughts. So the next three stages would be remembering, responding, and evaluating. These require more effort and they need to be done after the first two steps. You can't do them without receiving and understanding. So a medical journal by Rutling, Lisper, and Ekahamar describe this as many factors such as verbal responses, personal characteristics, intentions, and context interact to influence process and outcome in therapy and counseling, end quote. But these steps can't be done if there are barriers in the way, and those need to be knocked down. So the most common listening barriers are distraction, prejudice, lack of focus, and premature judgment. And if I were to tell you guys how to knock all those down, we'd be here for a while. So I'm just mostly going to focus on combating judgment. So when interviewing Miranda Dressing from the Counseling Center here at St. Ambrose, she advised that it is important to remember that each person has many different things that lead them to where they are in their lives. Whether it's lived experiences, genetics, availability of resources, trauma history, education, etc., it's important to remind oneself that your patient's circumstances that brought them to you are likely different from your circumstances, so there's no room for judgment. Also, it helps to remember judgment is not productive and will not help the patient improve and move forward, end quote. So some barriers are harder to knock down than others, and while combating listening barriers can be difficult, another way to improve one's listening skills is by studying and applying effective styles of listening. So different situations call for different styles of listening. If you want to have an objective or judgmental or critical style listening, those would probably be best for situations that are more casual, informal, one-sided, such as watching a speech on the news or haphazard conversations. Styles of listening for counseling are best if they're empathy or non-judgmental, because you want the patient to feel heard and unignored. So Bradley University wrote an article on this on their website, and it said, use this skill to demonstrate to clients that while counselors may not be able to feel things in the same intimate way, they can understand without judgment. Empathy provides a grounded point of view that helps the client feel comfortable in knowing their counselor is listening to them. So tying all these aspects together of the importance of each stage of listening and giving them equal attention, listening effectively and knocking down barriers, and choosing an appropriate listening style to build trust and provide comfort. All of these skills are important and they deepen the relationship and they build trust with a patient or a person. So Motivation Interviewing in Healthcare, written by Rolnick, Miller, and Butler, stated that there is something about being heard and understood, about being the focus of full compassionate attention that in itself is healing, end quote. So therefore, as it can be rewritten, The process of healing would be near impossible if one didn't have a good listener beside